If your voice is starting to feel tight or shouty or inconsistent in your belty zone, like E4 up to C5, I have some tools for you. That is just the zone where your voice wants to shift from mode 1, what we often call chest voice, into mode 2, what we often call head voice. So today I'm going to show you how to belt safely in that range by working with how your instrument functions, not against it. So we're going to go through how your folds, how your breath, and your vocal tract all collaborate. And I'm going to give you practical tools that you can start using today to make that range, E4, B4 up to C5, strong, free, and repeatable. Hey there, if you're new here, my name's Dan Callaway. I teach musical theater voice at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. More than 25 years kicking around on equity stages, more than 15 years helping singers get to work on Broadway, national tours in the regions and around the world. And I'm very glad you're here with me today. So what is belting and what is not belting? So belting is mode 1 phonation, chest voice coordination, carried higher than the place where it would really want to turn over into mode 2 naturally. So if I'm going, hey, my voice just wants to flip right over into mode 2. That's very natural. The folds are extending. The thyroarytenoid and vocalis muscles sort of go loose, and it just leaves the membrane to vibrate. Hey, there's just the cover of the membrane. So if I maintain mode 1 higher, hey, that's when I get into the belty zone. So that means your thyroarytenoid muscles are still active. The folds are a little thicker, and the sound has that brilliant speech-like clarity that we love in musical theater styles, commercial styles, pop styles. You literally have more vocal fold vibrating, therefore more frequency, colors, more actual vibration going on. And we can also viscerally feel that the voice wants to move over into mode 2. And so we can feel that sort of balance that's necessary to belt well. And I feel like our mirror neurons find that very exciting. So there are some ingredients that I like to really keep in mind for a healthy belt. So number 1 is what I would call a buoyant laryngeal position. So the larynx comes into a relatively higher position when we belt. And so I want to think about the larynx being able to float on top of your air, kind of like a buoy on the water. The larynx hangs from the hyoid bone, and so when we let air affect it and we let it tip and rock as it goes higher, that's what's going on in belting. So belting is a higher laryngeal position, gives us a brighter color, a higher frequency. It's also a balanced close phase in the fold. So belting is more closed phase than a 50-50 situation, which means that the folds are spending a little more time together than apart. So you would have a different sound with, see if I'm doing this early in the morning, so we'll see if this comes out. So hey, hey, so that would be in belty land. Hey. I changed the laryngeal position, therefore that changed the phonatory pattern. When I lowered the larynx, that brought it into more of a flow 50-50 situation. That is muscular and acoustic happening together. So relatively high laryngeal position, relatively closed phase with the vocal folds. The tract shape also supports a belt acoustically. A tract shape in belting is going to be more divergent. You're going to think sort of like the megaphone outward rather than a closing tunnel. So more divergent than convergent. That's sort of like a rough idea. There are divergences and convergences within the tract as well. And like I said before, belting brings our mode 1 into a higher range where normally we would just want to transition over into mode 2. There are 2 main neighborhoods of belt. There's open belt, which has a wider tract, so vowels like hey, oh. If you think old school Broadway has this sound all the time. Hey, oh. Okay, so you can just do your best old school Patti LuPone or Ethel Merman, and that's going to give you some open belt feel. And then closed belt is a narrowing of the tract. So most of the time that's going to mean the back of my tongue is narrowing into the pharynx. Hey, ah, ee. That's a little early so you can hear my mucus, but listen to the difference in open, hey, and hey, hey, hey. It has more there's more compression because of the narrowing of the tongue. Closed belt has more potential for higher pitches as well. So we're going to hear closed belt in a lot more contemporary styles, a lot of rock as well. You hear a lot of closed belt. Closed belt can also move higher than open belt. Open belt's going to top out in the C5 zone. Closed belt can move higher than that. So why does this range here, this sort of like E4, and like depending on the voice, like even E4 is not necessarily belting depending on your voice type. That could just be kind of like chesty speech for a soprano or a mezzo, okay? But like this E4 to B4, C5 range, why does that feel hard? So around here, your thyroarytenoid muscles, the vocalis and thyroarytenoid, the body of your vocal folds, they want to start handing things over to the cricothyroid, the muscle that pulls the thyroid cartilage forward that promotes thinning. Those are the stretchers that thin the folds as pitch goes up. So if you try to hold on to as much chest in that zone, it's like stretching a rubber band and refusing to let it thin. You're going to feel some tightness, you're going to feel some pitch limitation, and sometimes strain. So the fix is not to abandon your chest voice, it's to let the folds thin because they are thinning, because they are stretching, while keeping your body energy aware and conscious, and your acoustic shape also aware and conscious. Everything is moving when we're singing, so it's learning how these systems affect each other and learning how to let them work together in concert that's most important. So we're after cooperation. We're after witness of the body, not domination or control of the body, okay? Just think about how you feel if someone tries to dominate or control you. It's not a pleasant situation. Your body is no different. Body wants to be collaborated with, wants to be listened to. The other thing to know about the thyroarytenoid muscles is that the body of your folds, it's what we call an isometric tensor. That means it can engage without shortening. So that's really magical. Your thyroarytenoid muscle is able to stay engaged and stretch. It's pretty amazing. So, hey! The TA and the vocalis muscle in concert, they are together remaining engaged while stretching. So you're going to let them thin. A big wall that people run into is that they want to make this B feel like this F. Yeah? So that can't happen. I mean, if you try to make that happen, then you're going to be pulling a lot of muscularity up to that B, and that's going to inhibit the stretch that it needs. All right, so step one, we're going to ground and breathe. Before you do anything with a voice, ground the system. Take a moment to feel your feet, toes, arches, heels. Let your rib cage feel floaty and alive. Your ribs float out and up. Your diaphragm naturally descends. Your belly button gently draws back toward your spine on the exhale. So you can try this while you're walking down the street, while you're standing in line. Ribs floating, belly button moving in and out, feeling the breath as a continuous loop. So that sort of floaty rib coordination, that keeps your breath energized without blasting your folds with pressure. That is going to be quite a safety net for belting. So I'm going to talk about different ways that you can move breath in and out. So today we're going to just sort of feel support from the abdominal family. Later on when we belt, I do often use a lot of rib closure for belting because the ribs, when they close, they pressurize the breath more. And so sometimes I do want a more pressurized feel when I belt. So I just want you to know there are options on how you can move breath out. There's not one right way, all right? There are more helpful ways than others, but there's not like one way to inhale and exhale. Just like you inhale and exhale differently in your different expressions in life. Same is true when we sing. So again, it's about understanding your systems, how they work, how they affect each other, and then you can make smart choices. And so for step two, we've grounded our body, we've become conscious of breath and body relationship. Now we're going to free the larynx and release the tract. So we're going to check for two common saboteurs, Pharyngeal constriction, that's going to squeeze right above the larynx. So your pharynx, I talk about it a lot in the vocal tract series that I created. The pharynx is the tube from the vibrating folds all the way up to the palate, the soft palate, and actually, technically, I guess through your nose, but that's the area that we're talking about. So pharyngeal constriction, that's where your swallow muscles are. So if you swallow, you can feel those muscles constrict. They've done it naturally our whole life. And a lot of times they want to come to the party and help. So it's a really weird thing to learn to relax those. And then another common saboteur is grabbing the chewing muscles, your masseter muscles, especially when vowels change. These muscles engage, these muscles sort of create a cascade of I will call them static engagements that can inhibit the flow of the voice. So a couple little quick things you can do for yourself. Sometimes if you sing into your hand, you're giving yourself a little sound barrier. Hey, 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 hey. You can literally feel the sound waves bouncing back to you. This gives you a beginning idea of how you can create this bounce back using acoustic shaping in the track. If you're feeling nothing bounce back, you're probably pushing forward. Hey, hey. You're probably, I mean, that actually wasn't an unhealthy sound, but if you're pushing forward and not really feeling any bounce back or feedback from the hand, sort of rebalance. And that's a good chance to ask yourself, how can I rebalance this so that I can feel some sound waves bouncing back toward me? Hey! And this just gives you an idea of like, oh, because we're going to be playing a lot with how acoustic energy comes back to us. This is gold. Playing with the sound waves that bounce back to the folds. It's really key in so many areas. The other thing that you can do about jaw and even pharyngeal constriction is do the little coyote to the moon howl. So you look up to the stars, let your jaw go slack, and then you just howl gently. So you can't, when I look up like this, when I turn my skull on the occipital joint, it releases those constrictor muscles. It's much harder to swallow. So that's a good way to practice. Just letting the skull rock up on the occipital joint. Ooh, hey, hey. So that's a good way to feel that. Also, this is a good way just to note the natural movement of the jaw. If you were to fall asleep on a train or a plane, how the jaw sort of just goes slack. So just noting the natural opening of the jaw. So those are some inhibitors in some areas that you can always check in on if you're feeling like you're singing inefficiently or unsustainably. Those are some areas to check in on. Your pharyngeal constriction, you can work with the coyote, and then jaw grab, you can give yourself some local massage, and then just giving yourself opportunities to feel sound bounce back. Very helpful just to get that going so that you don't have the idea of having to pump your voice out. You're actually working with the resonant dance going on in the pharynx, which is really wonderful to tune into, because then you're really taking care of you right here and not worrying about something that is literally past tense out in the room and not where you are. Okay, so let's break down acoustic strategy for open versus closed belt. I have a whole video on open versus closed belt that I will link up that goes into more detail on this. So with open belt, it's going to love vowels like A, O. In complete vocal technique, they call this whole mode, open belt lives inside a fuller mode called overdrive, which has an open tract. Hey, ho! So imagine calling across a mountain, a playground, any large expanse of space. Hey, ho! That is going to give you that feeling of the open belt. Some people call this calling voice, but I mean, a calling voice can have varying shapes. So, but that is, hey, over there! That was very Broadway. Hey, over there! Hey, you! Actually, the shape of like that mid-Atlantic movie voice that cropped up in the mid 20th century. That's a really good sort of key to this open. That's a really good key to this open belt. You can feel the resonance coming out. It's like it's really open. So that's a really good key if you need a little hook. Yeah. Okay. So, and then you can literally play around with this. You can try like an A on a 1-3-5-1 pattern. So hey, so that's not in belt yet. And so then I move up. Hey, and you can move that up. Hey, and so on. So I mean, and look, that's just like your basic 1-3-5. Try different patterns. Play with different phrases. I mean, sometimes I like to go, just even going minor is a fun little shift. Hey, or just even like doing a little minor third sometimes. Just spice it up a little bit. Pentatonics, different scales. Don't feel like you've got to be stuck into these little major scale variations. You can do lots of different things. And again, you want to check in like how much breath did that require? How much breath, how much support? How did that affect the phonation? And then what is my track doing? Hey! And just feeling that neighborhood of the open belt. Being mindful of your systems, my body, my breath, phonatory pattern, into the tract shape to phonatory pattern to breath. It's always talking to each other. Now, if we go into closed belt, we are going to be narrowing. So when I say narrowing, the back of your pharynx, the tongue is going to be backing up. The back of my tongue is literally creating a narrower channel for those sound waves. Therefore, you're getting a lot more compression and bounce down to the folds and then even through the tract, okay? So it's a narrowing point. Think about putting your thumb over a garden hose. It's creating some downward pressure in that fluid, and our sound waves are behaving much like a fluid in a physics sense. So you're going to think vowels like ah, eh, eh. Feel how the tongue naturally narrows on vowels like this. Ah, eh, eh. Yeah. So you're going to feel the back of your tongue sort of marshmallow back into the pharynx. So you're creating a narrowing point there in the pharynx. And then, there are all kinds of other options. So this is where a lot of contemporary musical theater lives, Wicked, Legally Blonde, Waitress, almost any. The Notebook, I'm hearing a lot of Notebook lately. I mean, it's pretty ubiquitous in contemporary musical theater these days, this more closed belt, because it's also giving you access to higher things. So you can do little variations. You can do variations of modal shift, then open, then closed. So if I went, I'm just going to go C to G. So if I went, eh, ooh, eh, so I'm feeling 3 different events there. Eh, ooh, just wanted to flip right over in the head. Let it. Eh, ooh, eh. So this little upward feeling, that's just me cueing my larynx that he can float up if he wants to. So, and then playing with yodels is really helpful. Those are really helpful for laryngeal freedom because your larynx is learning, oh, I am being influenced by the shape of the tract. It is having a retroactive effect on me. Really important for the larynx to know that. So when you do shift over into mode 2 and you don't want to, that's actually good news. It means that your voice is actually responding to a tract shape, and then you can change the tract shape. So the fact that your voice is able to respond is terrific news. So then if you want to increase your access into higher ranges with belt, you can use gentle slides. And you literally just want to go a little bit, little farther, little farther, little farther, okay? So again, we'll use a minor, yeah? And let's just use A. So you want to use slides because the slides are showing you, oh, this is very rubber bandy. So even if I go, hey, a rubber band has happened. It's just happened very quickly. My ear and my brain and my folds are brilliantly coordinating that pitch. So when I slide, that's telling my folds, oh, this is a rubber band situation. Pitch is actually happening here. And then I am supporting that through breath amount, support amount, and tract shaping. But if the A doesn't have enough narrowing, my tongue needs to scoot back like a millimeter. That is literally a millimeter of the back of my tongue making that happen, okay? So I want you to know it's that precise. So that's great news because if I want it to flip into mode 2, let's see, there's some mucus going on here. So I know how to do that as well. Or if I want to go mode 1 and make it lower density, I can widen that out if I want. I can make this space a little larger, a little more capacious to let the sound waves chill out a little bit. So it's a bigger sound. Anyway, another video, but everything is linked up to everything else. So that's how my brain works. But yeah, you want to do these little glides. And then as you go higher, say this is from E flat to B flat. I'm aware I'm letting the folds thin. If I don't let them thin, if I try to do this, and I try to apply that feeling to this, so isn't that interesting? My folds, they stretch, but it's the family of muscles around my folds that think, oh my gosh, I have to maintain this closure. So actually my pharynx, I felt my pharynx do some medial lateral constriction on that. It's trying to like maintain that feeling. hey. So oftentimes when you hear squeezing, it's not even a local vocal fold event. It's, hey, come on in. All right, so where was I? Okay, so I had to finish up at school today. I couldn't get it finished this morning, so apologies. You're probably going to hear a lot of ambient practice noise around me, but this room is brick and glass, so whatever, be fine. Okay, so we were just talking about increasing the distance of these intervallic slides. So even just if I'm doing a and you can do that on any so you're doing these slides. Now notice, so say if I get here, a lot of times like up to this A or whatever, even this A flat. So if I go that situation is almost always a vocal tract shaping situation. So you want to pay attention to what's going on at the back of your tongue, okay? There's a video that I have on this anterior posterior narrowing that will really explain this, but I want you to pay attention and go to a place so you can prove it to yourself. Go to a place where you can comfortably belt mode 1. So if I've got hey, and then I'm going to change the vowel to an oo or an e, okay? So I'm going to go hey, ooh, hey, hey, hey. Just changing the vowel, changing that shape, flipping me into mode 2, okay? So I'm going to pay attention to what that feels like. Hey, hey, ooh, hey. And just notice how the pitch changes, the mode changes. That's really how we yodel, okay? So that's a larger movement of the tongue that is affecting your registration. So if I'm here, hey, 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 I'm really wanting to maintain that narrowing of the tongue back into the softened pharynx with plenty of nice stretch in the soft palate up toward the eustachian tubes. Hey! That is what's going to help me maintain mode 1, okay? So that's the tract shaping, affecting phonatory pattern, then affecting breath, okay? So that's sort of that backwards influence of the systems of the voice. Then you can apply that into any phrase you might be singing. So I was just working on Anthem with a student. So even just, that G, F sharp, E, F sharp. So if I have, where could I start? Okay, so that'd be a very, very divergent shape, lower palate. Where could I start? That would be, so you could, then you can just move that phrase. Where could I start? Where could I start? Where could I start? Just feeling those transitions as you go up. Where? Playing around with your tract shape, just saying, oh, whoa, if I move my tongue there, that happens. If I move my tongue there, that happens. You can literally get in there and experiment yourself, noticing what cause what effects, okay? So really play around with that. Just want you to know, there's not like, one right way that I must do this and stand on one foot and look sideways in order to belt. It's a very natural human sound that you can calibrate, understanding my body, my breath, my phonation, my resonant shape, articulation, etc. Okay, so, and then you can apply it to, any belty song that you want to apply it to. You're asking yourself along those lines all the time, how do the vowels, how are they influencing my registration? My breath, how much support? How about the emotional intent? The emotional intent is going to completely shape the identity and the shape of the tract, okay? That's going to influence everything. And then you can adjust the coordination using all those dials. So that awareness, that's going to be the difference between pushing, efforting, trying to control, trying to manipulate, and balancing, being in coordination, in relationship, in witness of the brilliance of your body, really the brilliance of your body. So those principles, body use, how much breath, how much support, what kind of support, phonatory pattern, those benchmarks of belting, my larynx floating into a relatively high position, phase being able to be relatively closed and balanced, a more divergent tract shape, and obviously mode 1 brought into a higher place. Those factors are what we would call under the umbrella of belting. And again, we have open belt, hey, closed belt, hey. depending on who you ask. I have colleagues who do the opposite depending on what's opening and closing, but don't worry about it. Yeah, and then you can just give yourself some efficiency tests. So like 3 quick self-checks. You can do the singing into your hand. Hey, hey, ah, hey, ah, and then seeing if you can feel that back bounce from acoustic factors. Hey, hey, hey. You're letting your resonance really bounce back at you, getting that sense of barrier that's helping you. So the hand is a barrier, and then the tongue narrowing and tract shaping, those become helpful barriers, okay? So it's linking that up with what's going on in the tract. Also, taking your volume down a little bit. So if I have, where could I start? Playing around with less breath pressure to see if the coordination can still happen. Where could I start? Same shape, but less breath. So you can play around with that range of possibility as well. That's a really good check as well. No good deed goes unpunished. No good deed goes unpunished. I'm playing with the shape, being like, does the shape still support mode 1 belt with less breath? So that's a really cool test that you can do for yourself. And that tells you that that core energy that you're using, it can be intensified or it can be softened a little bit. And that tells you that your system is in balance, that you have that range of possibility. That's a good check. Then you want to check in, always want to relate your technique to what's an authentic emotional reality going on. So yeah, belting is not just, we've got our mechanics, but our mechanics are linked to an emotional reality. So you want to anchor your belt in the real emotional event that is justifying a belt. I was working the wizard and I with somebody this week, and so think about if I'm Elphaba and I'm saying something like, and I'll stand there with the wizard feeling things I've never felt. Yeah. So like the excitement, if I'm Elphaba and I've been rejected by my dad, rejected by my family, utterly rejected, ostracized, I'm green, no one else is green. And then I roll up and I find out that I have this amazing gift that is very special, and that's going to be my key to meeting the wizard, who's going to be like who's going to heal all of my father trauma. Yeah. So that's a big deal. There's a whole lot. Yeah. So if I've got, and though I'll never show it, and though I never show it, so I'm really excited. Yay! Just feeling that excitement inside. And though I never show it, doesn't quite hit it, right? Oh, I'm so excited! Yeah, so that's the emotional image of that. Or like, okay, if I'm thinking, at the end of Catch Me If You Can, that song Goodbye, there's all those sustained, goodbye, goodbye, da 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 da. It's very balanced, but thinking about like what his choice to exit out at the end of the show would be. I'm thinking of I'm alive, I am so alive from Next to Normal. Yeah, so why would that elicit a belt if I am Gabriel in that show and I'm getting through to my mom, Diana, and also to the dad, so that's, more sinister underbelly there, but like why, just asking yourself, who am I? What is the emotional image? How does that create breath impulse and tract shape? That way of working will tell you a lot about creating sounds. And then sounds that we call out, sounds that we just do in normal everyday life. I've talked about these like, hey, stop! Or surprise! Or I don't know, what's some other, just even like calling out pain or anguish. All of these different sounds come into singing, yeah? So they shape and color the reality of what we share in singing. So those reflexes naturally set up your breath, your larynx, and your tract for healthy intensity. They remind your nervous system that a powerful, very vibrant, efficient sound can come from play and intention and imagination and not force. So here's your formula. You want a sense of float and ease in the entire torso. So there might be a belt where you're going to have floatier ribs and you're belting with more of an abdominal driven situation. So let's see, hey, hey, hey! Or you might have a belt that's more rib closure driven. Hey, hey! You can hear that's a little more pressurized using the ribs than the abdominal. So that's going to be a phrase by phrase, song by song decision. You want to give your larynx permission to move and float. You want to have buoyancy in the laryngeal mechanism. You want to shape an efficient tract shape. So that's like 7 or 8 factors in the tract that you can adjust. Look at the vocal tract series that I put on that playlist if you want to really dive deep into the vocal tract. And then Authentic emotional connection, identity. Who am I? What do I believe is happening? If I am Anatoly in chess singing Anthem, that's a very different identity and situation than if I am Elphaba in Wicked. Two very different identities. That's going to form a vocal identity that's very different. So that's going to lead you to sustainable belt. It's not shouting, it's not muscling. So there's a feeling of shout and belt, there absolutely is, but we're sustaining it over time. We're balancing it over time. So that's what makes it artful and makes it singy. So it's just your body, your breath, your resonance working together. Your body use, breath entering that, leaving that. How am I letting breath come in? How am I moving breath out? How is that relating to the phonatory pattern? How is phonatory pattern relating to breath? And then into resonance and articulation and overall artistry. All right. And if you want to go deeper into any of this, you will find full guided exercises on things like this inside the resource library, especially things like modal yodels, breath unexercise, how I like to work on breath without even doing exercises, how you can just walk around, be in your car, be in line, and work on your breath coordination. SOVT frameworks, all kinds of things that are going to help you link up the systems of your voice. It is a library, so it's not like a systematic thing that you have to do all of. It's like when you go to the library, I need a book on this, I need something on this topic. So it's being curated so that you can have a place where it's like, oh, I need help with breath coordination. I need help with static engagement and tension. I need help with how do I coordinate my registration? How do I understand resonance? Things like that. So it gives you an overall body framework that is going to help you to understand the systems of your voice and then to have some agency over what these systems are doing and how they're working together and collaborate with the body rather than trying to force the body to do something, which is the opposite of fun, artistry, singing, ease. This work also forms a big part of the upcoming course that I'm going to be releasing soon called the Voice Map. And that's going to take you step by step through how the body, breath, phonation, resonance systems interact. If that sounds like something you'd love to explore, I will leave a link below where you can join the early interest list. So until then, keep your torso nice and floaty, your folds nicely responsive, and keep your curiosity engaged, open, curious about your body, what it's doing, and understanding you actually have a lot more access to the systems of your voice than you may realize. Most of all, please remember there is only one you, and somebody would love to hear the story that only you can sing. Love much? Now go sing. I better get out of this practice room because I see a lot of people eyeballing this place, so I'll get out. All right, love much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.